Hello world, with one simple trick, a security researcher was able to quite easily hack into 70% of the Wi-Fi networks in his city. Now, this isn't a hacking tutorial, I'm not going to be showing you step by step how to do the same thing, but it's an interesting story. The researcher was able to do all of this with just a $50 Wi-Fi adapter and a basic laptop for cracking, no specialist equipment required. Let's dig in. The researcher, one Ido at CyberArk, had a lightbulb moment after being stuck without internet on a few occasions, and having to ask neighbours if he could use their Wi-Fi. After having to do this several times, he realised people often use their phone number as their Wi-Fi password. His hypothesis being, if so many people really did just use their phone number as their password, cracking into their networks en masse should be pretty easy, as there aren't that many possible phone numbers. For an 8-digit phone number, excluding the area code, there's only 100 million combinations, which isn't much in the world of cracking. To test this theory, his first step would be to collect thousands of Wi-Fi password hashes so he could attempt to crack them. To do this, he employed an arguably Asian technique called Wardriving. Wardriving simply means to drive around armed with a laptop and a high-gain Wi-Fi antenna, collecting information about Wi-Fi networks around you. The best example of wardriving in action is Wiggle.net. It's a distributed wardriving platform. You can download their app, which uses your phone's Wi-Fi and GPS capabilities to gather information about Wi-Fi networks as you move, adding to their public map of almost 1 billion Wi-Fi networks. Wiggle isn't nefarious in any way. It isn't collecting password hashes like Ido did, but rather just basic statistics. For his Wardriving setup, Ido used an Ubuntu machine with an Alpha Wi-Fi adapter. These adapters cost in the region of $50. And as per hacker protocol, he donned a classic black hoodie, hid the laptop in a rucksack, and stuck the adapter on his back. Not the most incognito Wardriving setup I've ever seen, but it is functional. Also, technically he's walking here rather than Wardriving, I suppose, but anyway. Instead of collecting basic statistics on Wi-Fi networks, Ido collected PMKID hashes. PMKIDs are used for roaming capabilities between access points. Roaming is a useful feature typically used in mesh networks. For example, in universities, when you need many Wi-Fi routers to cover a whole campus, roaming allows a device to move freely between access points without having to manually stick in the password when you want to hop between routers. However, whilst a typical router for home use obviously won't be part of a mesh network, they often come with this mesh feature enabled by default, which turns on the use of PMKIDs. It doesn't help that in 2018 a vulnerability was discovered which enables the cracking of PMKID hashes to find the original Wi-Fi password. For a router with PMKID enabled, these hashes can be quite easily collected by a nearby third party at any time. Ido used HCX dump tool to capture the hashes he was after and proceeded to meander around his neighbourhood, definitely not looking completely sus, hoovering up those hashes. In total, he gathered 5,000 Wi-Fi network hashes. After which, he proceeded to test his theory by cracking them. Ido loaded the hashes into Hashcat, a tool which claims to be the world's fastest password cracker, and it is correct. I've used Hashcat before, nothing comes close. It uses the GPU power of your computer and works with all kinds of hashes. Ido used a kind of brute force attack to crack those hashes. It's called a mask attack and allows you to specify the exact key space that the brute force attack should use. For example, every phone number in Israel, the country of the researcher, starts with 05, followed by 8 random numbers. So he programmed this into the Hashcat command, 05 followed by 8 Ds, which each represent some random number. At first, the researcher tried cracking on a monster cracking rig, decked out with 8 Quadro RTX 8000s, each costing almost $7,000. That behemoth cracks at almost 7 million hashes per second, which blitz through the 100 million possible combinations in about 15 seconds. However, the same attack took 9 minutes on Ido's laptop, which isn't bad, all things considered. In total, using this method, he managed to crack 2,200 passwords. 44% of people had used their phone number as their Wi-Fi password. He ran the remaining hashes against the infamous rockq.txt password dictionary, which worked on a further 900 hashes. And after testing a few more super basic password combinations like 8 lowercase characters, he ended up with 70% of the hashes he collected cracked, which would obviously give him complete access to all of these supposedly private networks. Let me know in the comments, is it common where you live to use your phone number as your Wi-Fi password, or is this just a thing in Ido's hometown of Tel Aviv, Israel? This video is sponsored by Linode, who are giving you $100 worth of free cloud computing. Linode is a totally customizable cloud hosting platform. Whether you're looking to quickly spin up a VPN, website, or host a Kubernetes cluster, Linode has you covered. If it runs on Linux, it'll run on Linode. Linode just announced availability of their NVMe block storage, the first alternative cloud provider to officially support this state-of-the-art hardware at no extra cost to their customers. Linode's philosophy is to focus on providing all the tools a developer really needs at competitive prices. Use the link in the description now to claim your free $100. If you enjoy this kind of video, make sure to help me out by caressing the like button of the YouTube AI as well as turning on those sub notifications. If you want to see what goes on behind the scenes, make sure to follow me on the Instagrams. I'm @Jonty. I will of course link it in the description. And if you're looking for something to watch next, go check out my previous video on how fuel stations across Iran were completely disabled by a cyber attack. As always, sources will be linked in the video description. Stay tuned to more hacking videos and have a good one.